Stop. Turn the cameras off. That was the first thing I heard as I pushed through the crowd packed around the academy's sparring arena. But the cameras didn't turn off. They never do when humiliation is trending. Under the white arena lights, a single human girl stood in the center circle, small, bruised, and trying not to shake. Her name tag blinked on her chest plate. Lyra Vale, human, exchange cadet. Across from her, a towering alien cadet rolled his shoulders like he was warming up for sport. His species, Varkun, were known for thick bone ridges and heavy fists. He smiled like this was entertainment, not training. The academy called it integration. Most of the students called it what it was, a hunting ground. Lyra's gloves were too big. Her training suit was academy standard, but it hung on her frame like a borrowed uniform. Still, she kept her feet planted. She swallowed hard and lifted her guard. A referee drone floated above them. Match, Cadet Lyra Vale versus Cadet Rax Thull, it announced. Condition, yield or incapacitation. The crowd roared. Not for Lyra. Because everyone knew the truth. This wasn't a fair match. It was a message. Rax took a slow step forward, exaggerating the movement so the crowd could enjoy it. He raised his arms wide as if inviting applause. Human, he said, voice booming through the arena mics. Show us what your fragile bones can do. Lyra didn't answer. She glanced to the sidelines, where the instructors stood in a neat line of authority. One of them, Captain Serencade, the Academy's combat director, watched with a jaw so tight it looked carved from stone. He wasn't cheering. He wasn't smiling. He looked late. The drone chimed. Begin. And Rax moved like a collapsing wall. Section 2, the setup. Rax didn't rush to win. He rushed to perform. His first strike was a sweeping hook that would have ended the match instantly if it connected. Lyra ducked by instinct, the punch slicing air above her head with a whistle. The crowd gasped. Not because they respected her skill, but because they didn't expect her to survive the opening swing. She stumbled back, boots scraping the arena floor, and tried to keep her balance. Rax laughed, still standing. He came again, 2 fast jabs, then a knee meant to crush ribs. Lyra blocked the jabs with her forearms, pain shooting up to her shoulders, and twisted away from the knee. Her movement was messy, imperfect, human, but it worked. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Break her!" Lyra's mouth tightened. She looked like she wanted to speak, like she wanted to say she belonged here too. But she didn't waste breath. Instead, she moved. Small steps, angles, distance. She was doing what humans always do when they can't overpower something. She was thinking. Rax got impatient. His grin sharpened into a snarl, and he drove forward with a spinning elbow. Lyra tried to slip past it, half a second too slow. The elbow clipped her cheek. Her head snapped sideways. The world tilted. The taste of copper filled her mouth. She didn't fall. She blinked hard, eyes wet but focused, and raised her guard again. That's when I noticed Captain Cade shift his weight. His hand hovered near the command pad on his belt, the one that could shut down the match instantly. He didn't press it. Not yet. Because the Academy didn't stop fights early. They waited for the lesson. And the lesson was always paid for by the weakest cadet in the ring. Section 3, 1 second late. Rax backed Lyra toward the edge of the circle, cutting off her angles like he'd practiced this cruelty before. His voice dropped, meant only for her, but the arena mics caught it anyway. You're here because they want a mascot, he said. A cute little human who proves the galaxy is generous. Lyra's eyes flashed. I'm here because I earned it. That should have ended the mockery. Instead, it fueled it. Rax lunged and grabbed her collar with one massive hand, lifting her toes off the ground. The crowd screamed, delighted. Lyra's fingers clawed at his wrist. Her face reddened. Her legs kicked for balance. And then Rax did something that wasn't sparring. He reeled back his other fist for a full power strike, aimed at her throat. That was not a lesson. That was a statement. Captain Cade's voice thundered across the arena. Stop the match. Captain's order now. His thumb slammed the command pad. The drone's lights flashed. Cease. But that's the thing about command systems and violence. Violence is faster. Rax's punch landed. Lyra dropped like a cut wire. hitting the floor hard enough that the sound echoed. Her body curled, trying to breathe through shock. For a heartbeat, the arena went quiet. Like even the bullies weren't sure if they'd crossed into something unforgivable. Captain Cade strode forward, rage in every step, and hauled Rax backward by the shoulder. "You disobeyed an officer's command," Cade said, voice cold. "Explain." Rax lifted his chin. She didn't yield. Cade's eyes flicked to Lyra, still on the floor, shaking as she tried to suck air into bruised lungs. Then Cade looked back at Rax, and something in the captain's expression said, "You just made a mistake bigger than you understand." Section 4. The Human Rule. Medical drones slid in, scanning Lyra's throat and ribs. She coughed, spat blood, and forced herself onto an elbow. The crowd watched like it was part of the show. Captain Cade stepped between Lyra and the students, blocking their view. It wasn't just protective. It was deliberate. He didn't want them seeing what he saw, because what he saw wasn't weakness. Lyra's eyes lifted to his, and in them was something stubborn and burning. The same look humans have when the world tells them to fold. Cade lowered his voice. "Stop! Turn the cameras off." That shout sliced through the arena like a siren, but it didn't stop a single lens from recording. Because this wasn't just training. This was entertainment. I should have been in the upper observation deck, filing notes like every other junior officer assigned to the academy for integration oversight. But my boots were already pounding down the corridor the moment the alert ping hit my wrist pad. Unscheduled sparring. Human exchange cadet involved. Crowd forming. Those words always meant the same thing. By the time I reached the sparring hall, the place looked like a festival. Cadets pressed shoulder to shoulder around the circular arena, shouting over one another in a dozen languages. A ring of hovering drones floated at eye level, their red indicator lights blinking as they streamed the fight to the Academy network. I tried to push through. Elbows down. Someone hissed, annoyed that I was breaking their view. "Hey, let's watch." That's when I saw her. Right in the center circle, under the sterile white lights, stood a human girl who looked like she'd walked into a storm without armor. Her Academy-issued training suit fit poorly, too loose at the waist, too long at the sleeves. The gloves on her hand were a size too large, making her fists look like she'd borrowed someone else's body. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, but a few strands stuck to her temple where sweat and blood had mixed. A small ID tag on her chest plate blinked in clean text. Lyra Vale, human, exchange cadet. She wasn't crying. She wasn't pleading, but I could see it in the way her shoulders rose and fell, controlled, careful breaths, like she was counting them to keep her fear from spilling out. Across from her stood the reason this crowd had gathered. A Varkin male, tall, built like a reinforced wall, bone ridges running along his forearms and brow like armor grown from a skeleton. He rolled his shoulders slowly, like he was warming up for a sport match rather than standing over a girl half his mass. His name tag flashed too. Rax Thul, Varkin Combat Trek. He smiled, and the smile didn't reach his eyes. The crowd loved him. They always did, because power is popular, especially in a place where most cadets have been raised to believe humans were weak, primitive, a species that survived by luck and pity. The Academy called it cross-species harmony. The cadets called it teaching the human her place. And the worst part? The instructors had allowed the culture to grow like mold in the walls. A referee drone hovered above the circle, projecting clean lines on the arena floor. Its voice was calm and automatic, the way machines sound when they don't understand cruelty. Match classification, supervised sparring. Participants, Cadet Lyra Vale versus Cadet Rax Thul. Condition, yield, ring out, or incapacitation. The word incapacitation hit my stomach like a punch. Lyra shifted her stance. Feet apart, knees slightly bent, gloves raised. Her hands trembled once, just once, then she tightened her fingers and steadied them. She was trying to look like she belonged. Rax took a slow step forward, deliberately loud, letting his boots scrape the floor so everyone could hear the confidence. He opened his arms as if he were about to greet an audience. "Human," he said, his voice amplified by arena microphones. "They told me you're here to learn." A few cadets laughed. Someone whistled. Lyra didn't answer. Not because she couldn't, because she knew any word would become a weapon in their mouths. Rax tilted his head. No speech, no brave little statement about equality. His smile widened. Fine, then show us what your fragile bones can do. My gaze flicked to the instructor line along the arena edge. They stood in a neat row, clipped uniforms, arms crossed, faces neutral. Neutral in the way people look when they've decided what happens next isn't their responsibility. But one instructor wasn't neutral. Captain Saren Cade, the Academy's combat director, stood slightly apart. He was tall, lean, scarred across the jaw, someone who had seen real war and knew the difference between training and violence. His eyes tracked Lyra, then Rax, then the crowd, like he was measuring a problem that had already grown too big. His mouth was set in a hard line. His hand hovered near the command pad on his belt, the one that could override the referee drone and end the match instantly. He looked tense. He looked late. I pushed closer, stopping near the safety barrier. Captain, I called, trying to keep my voice level. This isn't scheduled. Who approved? Kate didn't look at me. His eyes were still on Lyra. I didn't, he said, voice low. That answer was worse than any other, because it meant this had slipped through, either by negligence or by design. Lyra swallowed, her throat working around pain. I noticed the faint purple shadow blooming at her collarbone like a bruise that had already formed earlier. That meant she'd been hit before, today or yesterday. Too many accidents happened around her. She was an exchange cadet, a symbol, a test. But symbols didn't bleed unless someone decided they should. Rax paced in a half circle, keeping Lyra in front of him while he made sure the crowd saw every angle of her. He was controlling the moment, not just the fight. Do you know why you're here, human? He asked, loud enough for everyone. Because the Academy needed to prove it's generous, that it welcomes the weak. Someone shouted, yeah, weak. Another voice, make her yield. Lyra's eyes tightened. Not angry, not yet. Determined, like she was forcing herself to stay present, to stay standing. I'm here because I earned it, she said finally. Her voice wasn't loud, but carried. For a fraction of a second, the crowd quieted, not out of respect but surprise. Humans weren't supposed to talk like that here. Humans were supposed to apologize for existing. Rax blinked, then laughed as if she'd told a joke. You earned it, he repeated. With what? Paper scores? Diplomatic pity. Lyra lifted her gloves a little higher. With my work. That's when I saw it, the smallest shift in her posture. She wasn't just defending herself. She was bracing for impact, like she knew the first strike was about to come, and she decided she would not collapse. The referee drone chimed softly. Final check. Combatants confirm readiness. Rax cracked his neck. Ready. Lyra didn't look away. Ready. The drone paused, as if even it could sense the imbalance. Then its lights flashed green. Begin. Rax moved, not like a student sparring, like a predator closing distance. His first step was a blur, too fast for someone his size. His shoulders rotated, hips turning with practiced violence, and his fist came around in a wide hook that wasn't meant to score points. It was meant to end her. Lyra's eyes widened. Then she dropped her center of gravity on instinct, ducking beneath the swing as air boomed past her head. The punch missed by centimeters, but the force behind it made the arena's edge fans vibrate. The crowd erupted. A roar of excitement, not concern. Lyra stumbled sideways, boots skidding, and for a heartbeat her balance looked gone. But she caught herself. She stayed up. Rax's grin sharpened, and he stepped in again, hungry now that the chase had started. And Captain Cade's hand twitched over the command pad, as if he'd just realized this wasn't going to be a lesson. It was going to be a disaster. This wasn't a spar. It was a show. And the moment Rax realized the crowd was hungry, he started feeding them. Lyra had barely regained her footing when he pressed in again. 2 steps, a feint, then a straight punch that looked textbook on the surface, except the knuckles were aimed a little too high, a little too sharp, like he wanted the impact to rattle her teeth rather than score a clean point. Lyra brought her gloves up just in time. The punch slammed into her forearms with a thud that echoed through the arena, and her elbows buckled inward. The crowd cheered as if they'd just seen a highlight reel. She slid back a half-meter, boots squealing on the polished floor. Rax didn't chase immediately. He circled, slowly, patiently. That's what terrified me. Not his strength. Everyone knew Varkin were strong. It was his control. He wasn't swinging wild anymore. He was measuring her, setting a rhythm, figuring out how long he could stretch this out for maximum humiliation. He wanted her to look helpless for as long as possible. Human reflexes, he said loudly, performing for the drones. Interesting. Still not enough. Lyra's jaw tightened. She wiped at her lip with the back of her glove and stared at him with the kind of focus you see in people who refuse to panic even when they have every reason to. Her breathing was loud now, but steady, 4 counts in, 4 counts out. I recognized it. Combat breathing. The kind you practice when you don't have the luxury of being bigger. She wasn't there by pity. She trained. Rax lunged again, jab, jab, low kick. Lyra blocked the jabs, but the low kick clipped her shin. Pain flashed across her face. She didn't cry out. She didn't fall. She shifted her weight, adjusted her stance, and angled her body so the next kick would hit less cleanly. The crowd started making noises like they were disappointed she hadn't collapsed. "Come on," someone shouted. "Drop already." Another voice. "Make her beg." That was when Captain Cade finally moved just 1 step forward from the instructor line. His eyes didn't leave the ring, but his presence sharpened like a blade being drawn. I leaned toward him, keeping my voice low. "Captain, this match isn't balanced." "It's not supposed to be," Cade answered, still watching. That's the problem. His hand hovered near the override pad again, but he didn't press it. Not yet, because the Academy had rules. And rules, when written by the powerful, always arrive dressed like fairness. The drone's voice chimed at regular intervals. Maintain regulation intensity. Illegal strikes will be penalized. But the drone was calibrated for species averages, not intent. And intent was exactly what Rax was weaponizing. He stepped in close, just outside Lyra's reach, and tapped her glove with 2 fingers, mocking. "You see, human," he said, voice dripping with superiority, "this is why your people needed machines, alliances, tricks. You're soft." Lyra's eyes flicked to the crowd, then to the instructor line, then back to Rax. And in that moment, I saw something shift behind her bruises. Not fear, calculation. She took a small step forward, too small to be an attack, too bold to be a retreat. Rax grinned, pleased. You're gonna try." He swung a heavy hook. Lyra ducked under it again, but this time she didn't simply evade. She moved inside his archetype, close, forcing his long arm to pass behind her shoulder. Her own fist shot up toward his ribs. It wasn't a power punch. It was a placement strike, quick, sharp, right where breath is stolen. Rax grunted. The crowd went silent for half a heartbeat. Lyra hit again, another short strike, then a fast step out before he could grab her. The arena exploded with sound. Not cheers, more like disbelief. Rax's smile vanished. He hadn't expected her to touch him, and now he looked insulted, like the universe had broken a rule by letting a weak species land a clean hit. Lyra backed up, guard high, shoulders still tense. She was shaking, not from panic, but from the adrenaline surge that comes when your body realizes you're in real danger and decides to fight anyway. Rax wiped at his ribs like something dirty had touched him. "You think that mattered?" he said. He charged. This time it wasn't a lesson. It was anger. A shocked silence, like the crowd had been cheering for a prank and suddenly realized the prank had become an emergency. The drones hovered closer anyway, their lenses narrowing, zooming in on her shaking breath, on the Academy logo stamped on her suit, on the human tag blinking like a target. Captain Cade reached Rax in 2 strides. He grabbed the Varcoon by the shoulder ridge and spun him around with a force that made even Rax's boots skid. "You disobeyed a direct order," Cade said, voice low and lethal. "Explain." Rax lifted his chin, trying to look superior even now. She didn't yield. Cade's eyes flicked past him to Lyra on the floor. Medical drones were already sliding in, scanning her throat and ribs with blue lights. A monitor tone started beeping, steady, fast. Lyra coughed. It sounded raw, painful. She rolled slightly on her side, one arm tucked under her, as if she was trying to protect something inside her chest from breaking. Then she forced herself onto an elbow. Even like this, shaking, breath hurt, she tried to rise. The crowd murmured. Some sounded uneasy now. Some sounded annoyed, like the match had been ruined by consequences. I heard a cadet whisper behind me. Did he go too far? Another answered, humans are fragile. That's not his fault. I turned sharply, but Cade's voice cut through the noise before I could speak. That strike, Cade said to Rax, was not within regulation intensity. Rax's jaw flexed. Regulations are written for fair opponents. Cade stepped closer. His shadow swallowed Rax's posture. You will address me properly. Rax hesitated, then forced it out. Captain. Cade's gaze stayed locked on him, but his next words were meant for everyone. For the record, Cade said, voice rising, this academy does not train predators. It trains defenders. If you can't tell the difference, you don't belong in this uniform. A few cadets shifted uncomfortably. Others stared, stunned, like they'd never heard an instructor speak that way in public. Rax tried to recover. Captain, I was provoked. She, Cade cut in, is an exchange cadet under academy protection, and you were ordered to stop. Rax's nostrils flared. The order was late. That sentence was poison, because it wasn't wrong. Cade's eyes narrowed, just a fraction. He knew it too. He knew he'd pressed the override a heartbeat behind the moment he should have. He knew he'd trusted a system that let cruelty breathe for too long. And the Academy Board would use that. They'd call it a timing error. They'd bury it under paperwork, under politics, under the illusion that no one was truly responsible. But the floor didn't care about paperwork. Lyra tried again to stand. Her knees trembled. One of the medical drones chimed, projecting a warning. Airway trauma. Limit exertion. She ignored it. She planted her glove on the ground and pushed up like her pride weighed more than her pain. The crowd watched, confused now, because the script they wanted wasn't happening. The human wasn't crawling away. The human wasn't begging. She was trying to rise while the whole academy stared. Cade finally broke eye contact with Rax and moved toward Lyra. He crouched beside her, not touching yet, giving her dignity, giving her control. Cadet Vale, he said, voice quieter, only the nearest mic's catching it. Can you breathe? Lyra nodded once, small, stubborn, then coughed again. Cade's jaw tightened. His eyes flicked up to the drones still recording. Cut the stream, he ordered, voice sharp. The drone hesitated, because machines hesitate when authority is unclear. And the Academy's authority was a web. Rax smirked faintly, like even now he believed the system would protect him. Cade stood slowly and looked at the referee drone. Override command, he said, each word clipped. Terminate broadcast. Now. The drone's red light blinked. The live feed finally stuttered out across the arena screens. But it was too late for that, too, because everyone had already seen enough. And Lyra, still trembling, still fighting for breath, lifted her head and looked straight at the cadets around the ring. Not with hate, with a calm, burning kind of promise. A promise that said, you tried to make me small. You failed. Captain Cade turned back to Rax, and in his eyes was something heavier than anger. It was decision. Cadet Raxthal, he said, you will be placed under immediate disciplinary hold, and you will answer for what you just did. Rax opened his mouth to argue, and that's when the arena doors slid open behind us with a hiss. A new voice rang out from the entrance. Cool, official, dangerous in a different way. Captain Cade, the voice said. The board has been notified. Cade in turn, but I felt the temperature drop in the room. Because when boards get notified, they don't come to protect the weak. They come to protect the institution. And Lyra Vale, human exchange cadet, had just become the most inconvenient truth the Academy had ever broadcast. They wanted this to disappear. That was the first thought that hit me the moment the arena doors hissed open and the board liaison walked in like the air belonged to her. Commander Veralon, polished uniform, perfect posture, and eyes that didn't blink often enough to feel human. She wasn't combat staff. She wasn't medical. She was the kind of person institutions send when they don't want a problem solved, only contained. Captain Cade, she said again, voice smooth and amplified by the hall's acoustics. The board has been notified. Around the arena, cadets shifted, sensing drama like predators smell blood. Even with the broadcast cut, plenty of them were already replaying clips on private feeds. Nothing ever truly vanished here. Cade didn't flinch. He remained between Lyra and the crowd, like his body was the last wall the Academy had left her. Good, Cade said. They can review the violation report. Commander Lon's gaze flicked to Lyra, still on the floor, medical drones hovering close, projecting soft blue diagnostic light across her throat and chest. Lyra's breathing had steadied, but each inhale still looked like it cost something. Then Lon looked at Rax. Rax stood with his chin lifted, hands open as if he were the victim of misunderstanding. I followed procedure, he said quickly, before anyone even asked. She refused to yield. Lon's lips barely moved. We will not debate in public, Cadet. Her eyes swung to the referee drone. Upload match logs. Full telemetry. The drone beeped in compliance. I watched Cade's jaw tighten. Telemetry could be twisted. Data could be interpreted, especially by a board that cared more about the Academy's reputation than one exchange cadet's bruised airway. Cade crouched beside Lyra again, careful not to touch her without permission. Cadet Vale, he said softly. You did not have to get up. Medical. Lyra's glove pressed against the floor. She pushed herself upright anyway, rising to a knee. Her face was pale, and her eyes were glossy, not with tears, but with that stubborn human refusal to let a crowd decide what she was. I'm fine, she rasped, voice rough. The medical drone chimed again. Airway trauma. Rest advised. Lyra ignored it and raised her head toward Commander Lon. I didn't yield, Lyra said, steadying her breath between words. Because it wasn't a fair match. It wasn't training. It was punishment. A ripple went through the crowd. Some cadets scoffed. Others looked away, uncomfortable. Commander Lon's tone stayed calm. Cadet Vale, you are under medical observation. Speak when cleared. Lyra swallowed. If I wait, it gets buried. That sentence hit harder than any punch. Cade's eyes flicked toward her, sharp, approving, worried, all at once. But Lon's gaze cooled. This academy is built on discipline. Public accusations create instability. Lyra's mouth tightened. Instability is letting bullies call it discipline. Silence. For a long beat, even the crowd didn't dare make noise. Because now it wasn't a fight, it was an indictment. Rax finally stepped forward, spreading his hands. Captain, she's manipulating the situation. Humans are famous for theatrics. She wants sympathy. Lyra's eyes locked on him. Hard, focused, not afraid. Then she did something I didn't expect. She looked past Rax, past the crowd, straight at the instructor line. Are you going to let him rewrite what happened? She asked. The question wasn't loud, but it was a hook in every listener's mind. Because now everyone knew. The next move would reveal what the Academy truly was. Captain Cade stood. He turned slightly, so his voice carried. Cadet Rax Thole violated order, violated regulation intensity, and escalated beyond training standards, Cade said. This is not interpretation. This is fact. Commander Lon's eyes narrowed by a millimeter. Captain, the board will determine fault after review. Cade's voice remained steady, but I could hear the edge. The board can review all at once. I am a combat director. I know the difference between sparring and assault. The word assault snapped the room like a whip. Rax's expression twitched, finally. Commander Lon pivoted, choosing language like a scalpel. Captain Cade, be mindful. Your choice of words has political consequences. The Academy is under scrutiny. An interspecies incident. Lyra exhaled a rough laugh, then winced at her own throat. So, it's about optics. Lon ignored the tone. It is about stability. Lyra's eyes sharpened. No, it's about whether the Academy protects those it recruits or feeds them to a crowd. A few cadets shifted again. You could feel it, something uncomfortable spreading. Some of them had cheered a minute ago. Now, they were being forced to see themselves from the outside. Cade stepped closer to Commander Lon. My order is simple. Rax is removed from training pending disciplinary action. Lyra receives protection and a fair hearing. Lon's gaze stayed cool. Protection implies a threat. Kay didn't blink. There is. Rax scoffed. From who? From me? I'm a top-ranked cadet. I represent. Kate cut him off. You represent your choices. That line landed like a punch to the ego. Even the Varkan cadets in the crowd stiffened. Commander Lon lifted a hand. Enough. This will be handled through board process. Captain Cade, you will submit your statement. Cadet Rax, you will remain available for questioning. Cadet Vale. Lyra's jaw set. If you separate me, I lose. Lon tilted her head. Lose what? Lyra's voice came out hoarse but fierce. The narrative. The only weapon a smaller person has in a system that favors the strong. That was the most human sentence I'd ever heard in this academy. Cade's hand hovered near his belt again. Not the override pad this time, but a small token worn on the clip, the insignia of an old Terran unit, gifted during joint operations. He touched it once like grounding. Then he said, loud enough for everyone, there will be no quiet handling. Commander Lon's eyes sharpened. Captain, Cade's gaze swept the crowd. All instructors present will file independent reports. All drones will submit raw footage, including internal motion tracking and audio. Any cadet found distributing edited clips will face disciplinary action. Some students visibly paled. Others looked irritated, like the fun had been stolen from them. Rax's eyes narrowed. You can't. I can, Cade said. And I will. Commander Lon's voice stayed smooth, but there was steel under it. Captain Cade, you are overstepping. The board controls dissemination. Cade answered with something that sounded like a human oath. Then the board can explain to the Galactic Oversight Council why a human exchange cadet was targeted in a public ring under Academy supervision. That did it. You could see the change in Lon's face, tiny but real. Oversight Council involvement meant external review. External review meant scandal. And scandal was the one thing institutions feared more than injustice. Lyra looked up at Cade, eyes wide, not with gratitude, but with realization. Rax continued, confident. Captain Cade's stop order came after my strike began. I could not halt momentum instantly. He turned slightly, as if offering an apology to the room rather than to Lyra. It was unfortunate. Unfortunate, Lyra repeated softly. A board member glanced toward Captain Cade. Captain, did your order come late? Cade's jaw flexed. Yes. Some board members nodded like they'd found their convenient conclusion. Commander Lon's voice was gentle. Timing errors occur under high-speed conditions. Lyra raised her hand. May I speak? The board member gestured. Proceed. Lyra took a slow breath. Her voice came out rough, but controlled. Rax says he couldn't stop because of momentum, she said. That claim can be tested. She turned her datapad outward. I request we review the raw telemetry now, frame by frame. Commander Lon's eyes sharpened. Cadet Vale, protocol requires. Lyra didn't flinch. Protocol also says a trainee's safety systems must be reviewed after a severe impact. A pause. Then one board member nodded, impatient. Show it. A wall display activated. The arena footage appeared, wide angle, then slow motion. A second overlay popped up, impact force readings, strike trajectory, and an intensity threshold line. Lyra's voice stayed even. At timestamp 3 hours 11 minutes and 8 seconds, Rax grabs my collar and restricts airway. That's already escalation beyond sparring conduct. The board watched. Some shifted uncomfortably. Lyra tapped again. The clip advanced. Now here, she said. At 3 hours 11 minutes and 12 seconds, Captain Cade issues the stop order. The drone lights switched to cease. The room leaned in. And here, Lyra continued. At 3 hours 11 minutes and 13 seconds, Rax chooses to complete the strike. Commander Lon stepped forward. Momentum. Lyra didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She pointed at the telemetry overlay. The strike begins after the stop order, she said. Not before. You can see the shoulder rotation start here, after the cease indicator changes. The board's eyes flicked between the motion and the data. Then the impact graph spiked, far above the regulation threshold line. A board member's voice went quiet. That intensity is excessive. Lyra nodded once. Excessive is a polite word. Rax's face tightened. That data can be misread. Human sensors. Lyra's gaze snapped to him. The sensors are Academy standard, not human. Silence. Captain Cade finally spoke, voice low and firm. She's right. Commander Lon's comm mask cracked by a hair. Captain. Cade didn't look at her. The cadet ignored a cease order. He escalated. He struck to injure. A board member leaned back, expression hardening. Cadet Rax Thull. Do you dispute the telemetry? Rax's mouth opened. Closed. His pride tried to stand, but the data had him by the throat now. He forced out, I reacted. Lyra's voice stayed steady. He didn't react. He decided. Another board member spoke, colder. And the crowd? The unscheduled match approval. Cade's eyes lifted. There was no approval. Someone bypassed scheduling. Commander Lon's voice sharpened. That is an institutional matter. Lyra lifted her chin. No, that's the reason it happened. A long pause hung over the room, heavy and unavoidable. Then the oldest board member spoke, voice like stone. This hearing is no longer about a sparring incident. Their gaze swept the chamber. It is about whether the Academy has cultivated a culture that targets those it claims to integrate. Rax's expression finally shifted. Real fear now, small but visible. Because now the system wasn't quietly protecting him. It was looking at him as a liability. Lyra felt it too. She didn't relax. Humans didn't relax when a predator smiled. Commander Lon inhaled, controlled. The board will deliberate. Cade's voice cut in, firm. Before you do, Cadet Vale has one more request. The board member glanced at Lyra. Speak. Lyra's eyes didn't leave the judges. I want to finish what he started, she said. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Rax's head snapped up. What? Lyra's voice stayed calm, almost clinical. Not in a public circus. Not with a crowd hunting for blood. A regulated match. Monitored. Fair. Commander Lon's eyes narrowed. Cadet Vale, your medical condition. Lyra's mouth tightened. You kept calling it training. So let me train. The board members exchanged looks. Some horrified. Some intrigued. Some calculating. Because if the human asked for a match and won, it would rewrite everything. And if she lost, it could end the story in a way the Academy preferred. Captain Cade's gaze met Lyra's, and for a second, I saw it. He understood what she was doing. She wasn't asking for revenge. She was asking for a stage where the truth couldn't be edited. A simple human principle. If you can't overpower the door, use the hinge. Rax stumbled forward, suddenly off balance. Lyra used his momentum like it belonged to her. She swept his leg. Not brutally, not theatrically, clean and technical. Rax hit the floor with a shock that echoed. The entire arena went still. A Varkin didn't fall easily. Rax surged up in fury, eyes wild. Lucky. He charged again. Lyra backed once, then stopped. She braced. When he came close, she shifted her weight and drove a short strike into the center of his chest plate, right where breath steals focus. Not enough to injure, but enough to disrupt. Then she moved behind him, her arms wrapped around his elbow and shoulder in a tight lock. She didn't squeeze his throat. She didn't violate the rules. She used geometry. Rax tried to power out, muscles flaring, ridges flexing. But every time he pulled, Lyra adjusted her hips and tightened the angle, turning his strength into pressure against his own joint. Rax grunted, shock mixing with pain. Lyra's voice was low, near his ear, calm, steady, human. Yield, she said. Rax trembled with rage. Never. Lyra tightened the lock by a fraction. Not cruelty, just consequence. Rax's body realized what his pride wouldn't. If he kept fighting, something would snap. His hand slapped the floor. Yield, he choked out. The drone's lights flashed. Match ended. Victory, Cadet Lyra Vale. For a second, nobody reacted. Then, slowly, the sound began, quiet at first, confused. Not cheers, not boos, just the uneasy wave of an academy realizing its favorite story was wrong. Lyra released the hold immediately and stepped back, hands open to show she was done. She didn't gloat. She didn't celebrate. She just stood there breathing, throat bruised, eyes steady. Captain Cade walked to the center and lifted his voice. This is what training looks like, he said. Control, discipline, respect. His gaze swept the instructors and the board members seated behind the glass. And this, he added, is what happens when you underestimate a human. Commander Lon's face was unreadable, but her eyes had changed. Not softer, sharper, because the Academy could no longer claim Lyra survived on pity. She had one under their rules, on their floor, in their ring, with their sensors recording everything. They couldn't edit this into a joke. Rack sat on the ground, furious and stunned. He looked at Lyra like he couldn't understand how he lost without being beaten by brute force. Lyra looked back, not with hatred, with something worse for his ego. Clarity. You targeted me because you needed me to be small, she said, voice carrying just enough. But I'm not here to be small. Then she turned away from him, away from the crowd, and walked straight to the instructor line. She stopped in front of Captain Cade. Cade held her gaze. Captain, Lyra said. Yes, Cadet. Lyra's voice was still rough, but didn't shake. Next time someone tries this to another outsider, don't be 1 second late. Cade's jaw tightened, then he nodded. I won't be. That evening, the board released its decision. Raxthal was removed from combat track, pending expulsion review. 3 other cadets were disciplined for organizing unscheduled matches. 2 instructors were suspended for failure to intervene. It wasn't perfect justice. Institutions never give perfect justice willingly. But it was a crack. And humans? Humans know what to do with cracks. Lyra became more than an exchange cadet. She became proof that the Academy's hierarchy wasn't destiny. And the next time someone whispered, humans don't belong, someone else answered, careful, they don't win by muscle. They win by refusing to break.